The Aston Martin Vantage S doesn't reinvent the wheel, it just sharpens it. And honestly, that's exactly what it needed to do. I've always had a soft spot for the current Aston Martin Vantage. It's loud, expensive, wildly powerful, and absurdly good-looking. But underneath all that glam is something better. A proper driver's car. It's got attitude. It feels a little dangerous in the best way. Like it might misbehave if you poke it too hard. And that's part of the charm. So what's new with the Vantage S? On paper, not a ton. Power climbs by 15 horsepower, bringing the total to 671. That's about a 2% bump, basically impossible to feel in the real world. Still, Aston tweaked the throttle mapping to make it more linear, which helps make all that power easier to manage. Subtle? Yes. Welcome. Also yes. Visually, the S gets some tasteful upgrades. There's a handmade forged brass S badge filled with red glass enamel on the fenders. A classy little flex. The hood vent blades and rear spoiler are unique to this version. And revised underbody aero adds 147 pounds of downforce at 202 miles per hour. Not that most owners will ever see 202 miles per hour. But it's cool to know it's there. Inside, you'll find S logos stitched into the seats and a few trim tweaks to remind you that you paid extra. But the real story isn't the badges or the power bump. It's the suspension. Aston Martin's engineers focused heavily on tightening things up. There's a bit more negative camber, a stiffer rear sway bar, and retuned adaptive dampers. Spring rates stay the same, but the adjustments around them make a difference. The biggest change is at the rear. The aluminum rear subframe, which also supports the gearbox, is now solid mounted to the chassis instead of using rubber bushings. That means better precision and a 5% increase in overall body rigidity. Lateral stiffness jumps 30%. In simple terms, the rear end is more connected, more controlled, and more honest about what it's doing. Of course, solid mounts can introduce unwanted vibration. So Aston softened the gearbox mounts by 10% to keep things civilized. They also redesigned the rear bump stops to be softer at first, then progressively firmer, helping prevent the suspension from bottoming out under hard acceleration on the road. Especially on tight California canyon runs, the improvements are obvious. The previous Vantage was already brilliant, but it could feel slightly unsettled at the rear when pushed hard. The Vantage S smooths that out. It feels tighter and more composed without becoming harsh. There's a noticeable increase in initial stiffness, yet somehow it remains supple when you really lean on it. It's also more neutral. The car feels smaller, sharper, and easier to place. The front end stays planted, while the rear is now easier to modulate into controlled slides. You can drive it like a precise momentum car, or let it loosen up and play. Either way, it feels more predictable and more confidence-inspiring. Pricing starts at $199,500, about $5,000 more than the standard Vantages. $194,500 base price. Realistically, with options, you're looking at something in the mid-$200,000 range. My tester came in at $248,400. That puts it in interesting territory. For similar money, you could grab something like a Porsche 911 Turbo S, which starts north of $270,000. The Porsche is brutally fast and technically brilliant, no question. But the Vantage S? It feels more alive, more dramatic, more special. Aston Martin is on a roll lately, refining its lineup instead of flipping the script. And the Vantage S proves that sometimes the best move isn't a revolution, it's careful evolution. It keeps everything that made the Vantage great and tightens it up just enough to make you fall in love all over again. If you're in the market for a six-figure sports car and want something that feels a little less clinical and a little more emotional, the Vantage S might just be your answer.